It is, I confess, with some reluctance that I set down the particulars of the affair which once carried Mr. Sherlock Holmes and myself into that sombre borderland where honest commerce and the lawless ingenuity of men meet upon the black waters of the Thames. My hesitation arises not from any fear of libel, for the principal offender has long since paid his debt, but from a tenderness towards one whose calling was built upon discretion, and whose very virtues were twisted into a noose about his neck. If I now break that discretion, I do so only because time has blunted the sharpness of personal consequences, and because the lesson may stand as a warning in an age when messages fly swifter than truth. The case is known in our own private annals as the adventure of the Wapping Cipher, for it began, as so many of Holmes's adventures began, with a commonplace object laid upon our sitting-room table at Baker Street.
There is a gentleman to see you, sir.
Show him up, Mrs. Hudson, and pray observe whether he wipes his boots upon the mat or steps round it.
I glanced, not without amusement, at Holmes's languid figure stretched upon the sofa, for his eyes had that bright faraway look which meant that his mind was already at work upon the unseen visitor. Mrs. Hudson had scarcely withdrawn when a man entered quietly and with a certain restrained dignity, yet with that nervous exactness of movement which betrays a disposition perpetually upon guard.
Mr. Holmes, I presume, and Dr. Watson.
His English was precise, his accent so faint as to be almost unnoticeable, and yet his face, with its dark eyes and clear olive skin, suggested some foreign blood not far removed.
Pray take this chair, sir, and oblige me by telling me your name, your occupation, and the nature of your uneasiness.
My name is Elias Vernet, and I am an interpreter by profession.
An interpreter, and therefore a man who makes his living by saying what others mean, while being careful not to say what others have said.
That is neatly put, sir, and it is near enough the truth to make me uneasy.
He sat on the edge of the chair, hat in hand, his eyes moving from Holmes to myself and back again, as if he sought in our faces some assurance which he could not find in his own thoughts.
You have been upon the river this morning.
Yes, sir.
And you have been aboard a vessel recently arrived from the continent.
That also is true.
You will perceive, Watson, the faint towel upon the cuff, the river mud upon the heel, and, if my nose does not deceive me, the subtle odour of chloride of lime, which is much used in certain dockside warehouses.
Our visitor's brows rose, and for an instant his nervousness gave way to astonishment.
It is indeed as you say, Mr. Holmes.
Then we may waste no time in preliminaries, Mr. Vernet, for your haste is written in your throat, which is dry, and in your fingers, which have pressed too often upon the brim of the hat.
I have come because I am threatened, and because I fear that I am to be made the instrument, or the sacrifice, of a crime.
Crime is an elastic word, and covers everything from a murdered king to a stolen umbrella.
This is smuggling, Mr. Holmes, and yet it is more than smuggling, for it has reached into the wires of the Telegraph and into the papers of my own desk.
He drew from his breast pocket a folded sheet creased as if it had been opened and shut a dozen times, and he laid it upon the table with a hand that trembled in spite of his evident effort to control it.
A letter.
A cipher, sir, or so I believe.
Holmes did not snatch at the paper as a common man might, but let it lie while he observed the stains and fibres as if the sheet itself were a witness whose manner must first be studied.
You may tell me, Mr. Vernet, whether you found it in the street, in a pocket, or in a place which only you have the right to enter.
In my own desk, Mr. Holmes, in the inner drawer, beneath the ledger which I keep for my employer.
And you have locked that drawer when you left it?
I had, and the key has never left my chain.
Keys, like reputations, are often duplicated without the owner's knowledge.
That is what I fear, sir, and yet the worst of it is that I have no one to accuse without accusing myself.
Holmes at last took up the sheet, holding it delicately by the corners and turning it to the light. The writing consisted of groups of figures and short words set in columns with a neatness which was almost pedantic.
Well,
I have struck out that little exclamation of his in other narratives, for it conveys nothing to the reader, but it was characteristic of him in moments when his mind leaped ahead faster than speech.
you have brought also a smaller scrap.
Yes, sir, for it was with the cipher in my desk.
Vernet produced a narrow strip of paper upon which a common phrase had been written such as might occur in any day's correspondence of a shipping office.
It says only, fine weather, and the tide serves at dusk.
And yet it says rather more than that.
Holmes's eyes grew keen, and he placed the two papers side by side as one might place two fragments of a torn photograph.
This second scrap is either a key or a decoy, and we must discover which.
I do not understand, Mr. Holmes.
It is better that you do not, for understanding is sometimes the first step towards being considered guilty.
At this, Mr. Vernet's face grew pallid, and he clasped his hat so tightly that the leather creaked.
Then you believe I shall be accused?
I do not believe I deduce, and I deduce that a man who finds a cipher in his private drawer is either the author of it, the intended recipient of it, or the intended victim of it.
Victim, Mr. Holmes. I pray you, victim.
Then let us hear the circumstances, with no omission of detail, however trifling it may appear.
He leaned back, steepling his fingers, while Mr. Vernet, with the air of a man taking a plunge, began his account.
I am employed by Messrs. Hargreaves and Baines, shipping agents at Wapping. My duty is to translate letters, contracts, and conversations for captains and supercargoes who cannot make themselves readily understood in English. It is a quiet post, and, because there are sums involved, it demands secrecy. I have never, in any business, given information to the police, and my employers would dismiss me if they thought me capable of it.
Secrecy, then, is the pillar of your livelihood.
It is, sir, and that is why my situation is hopeless. 2 nights ago, at about 8 o'clock, I was asked to attend a private interview above the office, in a room which overlooks the wharf. There were 2 men present besides myself, one an Englishman, and the other a foreign seaman who spoke Dutch with a correctness that surprised me. The Englishman said that he had business with the seaman, and that my services were required. I translated what passed between them, and yet I could not shake off the sense that I was being watched not as a help but as a test.
A test of what?
Of what I would make of certain words, sir, for the foreigner used phrases which have 2 meanings, one respectable and one coarse, and he watched my face as if to see which meaning I would choose.
Holmes's eyelids drooped, but I knew the man was attentive to every syllable.
For instance, he spoke of lace, and he spoke of spirits, and he spoke of medicine, but he used terms which, in dockside cant, can mean other things. I chose the innocent meanings, for that is what a prudent man does, and the Englishman nodded as if satisfied. The interview ended abruptly, and the Englishman said I should hear no more of it. The next morning, I opened my desk and found the cipher and the strip of paper, and I saw that my ledger had been disturbed, though nothing was missing.
You did not take these things at once to your employer.
I did not dare. If I showed them to Mr. Hargreaves, he would suspect me, for he knows that only a man within the office could have placed them there. If I went to the police, I should be ruined by my own profession, for I cannot betray clients and yet keep my place. And if I do nothing, Mr. Holmes, I fear that I shall be arrested, or worse, for I have had a warning.
A warning in plain language.
Yes, sir.
He drew out a third paper, a small card, and handed it to Holmes. Upon it, in a plain hand, were the words, "Silence is safety."
A maxim of the timid, and a threat from the bold.
Since receiving it, I have been followed, and once, as I crossed a narrow plank by the water, a man brushed past me so that I near fell into the river.
He shuddered, and I could well imagine the horror of that black tide closing over one's head beneath the indifferent lamps.
You did not see the man's face.
No, sir, for the fog was thick, and he had a cap drawn low.
Very good, Mr. Vernet. You have done wisely to come. Watson, your boots and your revolver, for we shall take a cab at once.
I confess that the suddenness of Holmes's resolve gave me a thrill, for it is in such moments that his languor falls away like a cloak, and he becomes all nerve and purpose.
Will you be late, Mr. Holmes?
Possibly, Mrs. Hudson, and you may keep the kettle in mind, for a man thinks more clearly with tea than without.
We were soon rattling eastward through streets where the fog thickened and the air grew heavier with smoke and salt. Holmes said little, but his quick glances took in the passing signs, the direction of the wind, and the occasional glimpse of river crafts sliding like ghosts between the wharves.
The river is a road, Watson, and like any road it has its inns, its thieves, and its toll gates. The Telegraph has become another river and a swifter one, and criminals are already building boats upon it.
At Wapping, we left the cab and proceeded on foot, for the streets were narrow and crowded with men whose shoulders bore sacks and whose voices had that harshness which comes from shouting against the clang of iron. Mr. Vernet led us to an office with a modest sign, and up a stair into a room where a green-shaded lamp cast a sickly circle upon a writing table.
This is my desk, Mr. Holmes.
Holmes examined the lock, the drawer, the wood about the keyhole, and the floor beneath, upon which a few grains of sand lay scattered.
You sweep here.
Each morning, sir.
Then these grains are recent and they are not river sand. They are gritty, sharp, and mixed with a trace of metal.
He rubbed a grain between finger and thumb, then held it to his nose with an expression of faint satisfaction.
A warehouse which stores chemical goods, or a place where lime is used.
There is such a warehouse by the wharf, sir.
We shall visit it, but first we shall visit the Telegraph office.
It was but a short walk to a small building with the crown upon its sign, and within it sat two clerks, pale and stooping, like men who spend their lives bent over paper and wire. Holmes entered with the air of a customer, his manner at once careless and commanding.
Good evening. I should like to send a message to Portsmouth, and I have been advised that you are the most reliable office in the district.
One of the clerks, a young man with anxious eyes, rose and offered a form.
Yes, sir, we can take it at once.
Holmes wrote a few words, folded the paper, and handed it across, but his eyes never left the clerk's fingers.
Be so good as to repeat it back to me, for I have had errors before.
Certainly, sir.
The clerk read aloud, and I saw a minute's hesitation, so slight that only Holmes would have marked it.
Thank you.
Holmes paid and withdrew, and as we stepped outside into the fog, he spoke in a low voice.
That man is frightened, Watson.
Frightened of what?
Of having to copy what he is told and of copying it wrongly.
You think he alters messages?
I think he is made to alter them, and the man who makes him do so is not far away.
We returned to the wharf where the tide sucked at the piles and the smell of wet rope filled the air. A warehouse stood near, with a padlocked door and a lantern swinging above, and beside it a foreman directed the movement of crates with curt gestures.
What do you want here?
Information.
Then you can ask the river, for it has swallowed more information than any man.
You're in charge of this store, and therefore you know what enters and what leaves.
I know what I am told to know.
Then you will know, at least, whether a crate marked with the sign of a small triangle has passed through your hands in the last week.
The foreman's face changed, as if a muscle had twitched beneath the skin.
I have seen many marks.
And yet you remember that one.
I remember nothing that will cost me my wages.
You may cost yourself rather more if you stand between me and my inquiry.
Holmes's voice was quiet, but it had that cold edge which few men can resist.
There was such a mark then, and it came with the Brabant Queen from Rotterdam.
And when will the Brabant Queen dock again?
She is due tonight, if the fog does not hold her off.
At an hour.
Near midnight.
Very good.
Holmes turned away as if the matter were settled, but I saw that his mind was already arranging the pieces into some swift pattern. We returned to the office of Messrs. Hargreaves and Baines, where Mr. Vernet introduced us to a clerk, a young woman with an intelligent face and a certain firmness about the mouth.
I'm Adelaide Baines, Dr. Watson, and I know of Mr. Holmes by reputation.
Her tone was respectful, but her eyes did not lower in the manner of a timid girl, and I perceived that she had the courage of those who have long held their own among men.
You have been troubled of late, Miss Baines.
We have, sir.
By delays in deliveries, by unusual messages, and by visitors who do not wish their names recorded.
Yes, Mr. Holmes.
Then you may assist us more than you imagine.
If it will save Mr. Vernet, I shall do whatever I can.
Holmes asked for the office log of outgoing telegrams and letters, and Miss Baines brought a book with trembling hands, for she knew that in that book might lie the ruin of her employer.
You fear Mr. Hargreaves?
I fear what I do not know, sir.
A sensible fear.
Holmes ran his finger down the columns, his eyes darting with incredible speed.
There, Watson.
He tapped upon a line where a message had been recorded in ordinary words, a simple instruction to a warehouseman.
It is too simple.
Too simple.
Criminal messages, when they become refined, hide in plain sight, and respectability is their cloak. Miss Baines, who wrote this entry?
I did, Mr. Holmes, from the form which the clerk brought back from the Telegraph office.
And did you copy it exactly?
As exactly as I could, sir.
As exactly as you could, and that is the flaw.
Holmes asked for the original forms, but Miss Baines, with a look of distress, told us that they were not kept, for there was no reason to keep such trivial scraps.
There is always a reason, but one rarely knows it until afterwards.
At that moment the door opened, and a tall man entered, clean-shaven, well-dressed, and with a manner that combined courtesy with a certain coldness.
Miss Baines, I believe you have visitors.
Mr. Vernet stiffened, and I saw his eyes flicker with fear.
Mr. Hargreaves, this is Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson.
Indeed, Mr. Holmes, your fame reaches even our humble office.
Fame is a bubble, Mr. Hargreaves, but sometimes it floats upon dirty water.
You speak in riddles, sir.
Then perhaps you will not object if I ask a plain question. Why was Mr. Vernet's desk open without his knowledge?
For a fraction of a second Mr. Hargreaves's composure wavered, then returned like a mask fixed more firmly.
I do not know what you mean.
You will know soon enough, for the matter concerns the police.
The police have no business here.
They have business wherever the law is mocked, and the law is mocked, Mr. Hargreaves, when telegrams are made to say what they do not say.
Mr. Hargreaves smiled, but it was not a pleasant smile.
Telegrams, Mr. Holmes, are as fallible as men.
And men are made more fallible by fear and money.
If you have accusations, sir, you should speak them to those whose duty it is to hear them.
That is precisely what I intend to do.
Holmes bowed with exaggerated politeness, and we withdrew, leaving behind us an atmosphere which seemed charged as before a storm.
Outside, Mr. Vernet clutched at Holmes's sleeve.
It is he, Mr. Holmes. It must be he.
Your emotions, Mr. Vernet, are quick, but I require slower evidence.
You suspect him nevertheless.
I suspect that he is not merely a shipping agent. He has the hands of a man who does not lift crates, but the eyes of a man who watches others lift them. He also uses paper, which comes from a stationer favoured by lawyers, not by dockmen.
The watermark.
Precisely.
Holmes's plan, when at last he revealed it to me, had the daring simplicity which has so often bewildered the police and delighted me, though it frequently placed us in danger.
We shall set a message upon the wires, which will be harmless in itself, yet irresistible to the guilty.
And how is that done?
By offering them what they desire most.
Which is
Control.
Holmes instructed Miss Baines, who proved herself as steady as any man, to send a telegram at a certain hour using a phrase of ordinary commerce which, in the mouths of dockside men, could bear a second meaning.
Write it as you would write any instruction about a shipment of lace, and yet choose the word which a rogue would take for something else.
I'll understand, Mr. Holmes, and I can do it.
Holmes then paid a second visit alone to the Telegraph office, and when he returned I saw by his set lips that he had accomplished something.
The frightened clerk will speak, Watson, but only when he believes himself already discovered.
You threaten him.
I offered him mercy, which is often more effective.
As the evening wore on, the fog grew thicker, and the very gas lamps seemed to retreat into pale halos like moons seen through gauze. Holmes and I took up our station near the warehouse by the wharf, concealed behind a stack of empty barrels, while Mr. Vernet, by Holmes's direction, made himself visible at a little distance, as if waiting for someone.
He must appear to be the willing tool, for the guilty man expects him to be so.
It is a cruel part for him.
Cruelty is a luxury, Watson, and criminals are often extravagant.
Near 11 o'clock a shadow moved along the wharf, and a man approached Vernet with the swagger of one who wished to appear careless.
You the interpreter.
I am.
You're to come and call in you to keep your mouth shut.
I have kept it shut thus far.
That is well, for loose tongues sink bodies as readily as stones.
The fellow spoke with a roughness which sat ill upon his youth, and I suspected that he had learned threats as one learns a trade. Holmes's hand touched my sleeve in warning, for my impulse was to spring out and seize the man, but Holmes's eyes held me still.
There is a message for ye.
He handed Vernet a slip, and Vernet's eyes ran over it with a look of despair.
It is in cipher.
Then read it and do as it says.
Vernet shook his head.
I cannot, for I do not know the key.
You will know it if you value your life.
The young man leaned close, and in an instant Holmes rose like a release spring.
You will step aside, my friend, and you will do it without suddenness.
The man spun, and his hand went to his pocket, but Watson of Afghanistan had not forgotten the speed with which death can come. I had him by the wrist before he could draw, and Holmes, with a swift twist, relieved him of a small pistol.
A cheap weapon, and therefore a cheap courage.
Let me go.
Not yet.
Holmes took the slip which had been handed to Vernet and held it to the lantern light.
This is not a message, Watson, it is bait.
Bait for whom?
For the man who believes that Mr. Vernet can read a cipher which he cannot.
Holmes's gaze travelled down the wharf, and I followed it. Through the fog came the low churn of paddles, the creak of ropes, and then the looming shadow of a vessel easing into the piles.
A voice called, muffled by the mist.
Easy there, and mind the tide.
Lanterns moved like will-o'-the-wisps, and men's silhouettes shifted as crates were lowered and dragged. Then out of the darkness there appeared a figure whose very gait proclaimed authority, though he wore a plain coat and a cap like any clerk.
Is it done?
It is not so, for they caught me.
The newcomer stepped into the circle of light, and I saw at once that it was Mr. Hargreaves. His face, now that the mask had slipped, showed anger rather than surprise, as if he resented the universe for not obeying his arrangement.
Good evening, Mr. Hargreaves.
Mr. Holmes, you are persistent.
Persistence is the humble cousin of genius, and I have often found it useful.
You are meddling in matters which do not concern you.
On the contrary, you have made them concern me by placing a cipher in an honest man's desk.
Honest.
As honest as an interpreter may be in a dishonest world.
Hargreaves gave a short laugh.
You speak as if you understand.
I understand that you use the wires to steer your cargo, and the tongues of others to shield your own.
You have no proof.
I have rather more than proof, for I have your method.
Holmes drew from his pocket a folded form and held it out.
This is the message I sent earlier, and this is the message as it was copied in the office, and you will observe that they are not the same.
Hargreaves' eyes narrowed.
A clerk's error.
An error repeated with such convenience that it becomes an intention. You alter one group, you change one word, and you change a birth, a crate mark, or a meaning. You do not need to carry contraband upon your person, Mr. Hargreaves, for you carry it in the muscopion of a boy with frightened eyes.
For the first time, I saw uncertainty in the man's face, and with it a deeper thing, a sudden calculation of escape.
He glanced towards the water, and Holmes's hand moved as if to anticipate him.
Do not attempt it, for the river is colder than your conscience, and it is not in the habit of returning what it takes.
You played the moralist, Mr. Holmes.
I played an observer. Now tell me, what did you promise the clerk?
Nothing.
Then what did you threaten him with?
Hargreaves' lips tightened, and I realized that Holmes's question had struck nearer than any direct accusation.
You think you can frighten me with talk?
I need not frighten you, for you are already frightened. You are not frightened of prison nor of scandal, but of something older.
Holmes stepped nearer, and his voice grew softer.
You smuggle, yes, but smuggling is not your motive. You smuggle because you must keep a secret, and because the same network which moves forbidden crates can also move forbidden knowledge.
You are guessing.
I am reading. There is an incident in your past connected with certain papers, and you have built a wall of criminal loyalty around yourself. If the wall falls, the papers come into light, and you fall with them.
Hargreaves' face went grey, and I knew then that Holmes had touched the hidden nerve.
You know nothing.
I know that you chose Mr. Vernet precisely because his profession requires him to keep silent. You placed in his desk a cipher which you intended the police to discover. You altered telegraph messages so that they would point to him, and you arranged a meeting where ambiguous foreign words would test whether he could be implicated by translation.
A heavy step sounded behind us,
and Inspector Lestrade emerged from the fog with 2 constables at his heels.
Well, Mr. Holmes, you have brought us into a pleasant place for a stroll.
I thought you might appreciate the air, Lestrade.
The air is vile, and the company worse. We have had whispers about this wharf for a month, and every time we came, we found nothing but honest crates and honest men.
Honesty is sometimes a label pasted over a different object.
And what have you now?
A man who directs smuggling by telegraph, and a youth who delivers threats, and a frightened clerk who will be grateful for your protection.
Protection for a clerk.
He will be in danger when he tells you how he was compelled to miscopy messages.
You mean to tell me that this business turns upon a boy's handwriting?
It turns upon the fact that modern crime may be committed without leaving the house if only one can make another man write a different word.
This is a new one, even for you.
Lestrade's eyes fastened upon Hargreaves, and the old rivalry between them seemed to sharpen the inspector's expression.
Mr. Hargreaves, I have seen you before.
You are mistaken.
No, I am not, and I do not forget a face that has stood in a court and spoken smooth lies about a dockside accident.
Hargreaves made a sudden movement, and one of the constables seized him by the arm.
Take your hands off me.
We shall take rather more than that, if Mr. Holmes's tale is half as true as it sounds.
It is truer than it sounds, for it sounds improbable to those who have not listened to the wise.
Under Holmes's direction, the constables searched the immediate store, and in one of the crates marked for ordinary lace they found bottles of spirits packed within false compartments, and beneath them, wrapped in oilcloth, a bundle of papers.
Lestrade's face hardened as he looked upon the documents.
This is what you were keeping buried, is it?
Those papers are private.
Private things are often public crimes.
That, Lestrade, is your motive.
Hargreaves ceased struggling and stood very still, like a man who hears the final turn of a key.
You do not understand what you have done.
I have done what I always do, which is to prefer the truth to your convenience.
March him off.
The constables led Hargreaves away into the fog, and his figure was swallowed by it as if the river itself had claimed him.
Mr. Vernet sank upon a barrel, his head in his hands.
It is over, then.
The dangerous part is over.
And the rest?
The rest is merely the slow business of the law.
You will have to come with me, Mr. Vernet, and give a statement.
I cannot, Inspector, for I cannot betray clients.
You can tell the truth without betraying more than is necessary. You will speak of what you saw, of what you were asked to do, and of the papers found in your desk, and you will leave the rest to Mr. Lestrade's imagination.
My imagination is not the tool I prefer.
Then use your notebook.
Vernet looked from Holmes to Lestrade, and I saw in his eyes the conflict of a man whose professional honour had been turned into a trap.
If I speak, I lose my employment.
If you do not speak, you lose your liberty.
Lestrade softened, which was rare with him.
You have been made a pawn, man, and the law does not punish pawns as it punishes players.
In the end, Vernet went with them, and Holmes and I returned weary and chilled to Baker Street.
Mrs. Hudson had kept the kettle as Holmes requested, and the steam from the tea seemed to lift some of the Thames's damp from my very bones.
You look as if you have been walking in your sleep, gentlemen.
We have been walking in other men's wake, Mrs. Hudson.
Holmes sat with his cup untouched for some minutes, his eyes fixed upon the fire as if he watched there the red reflection of the wharf lamps upon dark water.
At last he spoke, not to me alone, but to the unseen audience, which I have always imagined when I set down these narratives, the audience of reasonable men who think crime must be loud in order to be dangerous.
In former days, Watson, a smuggler, needed a fast boat and a strong arm. Today he needs a frightened clerk and an ambiguous word.
You spoke of translation as a trap.
It is a gate, and gates may be used by honest men or by thieves. When language is made into a code, the interpreter becomes the key, and keys are easily blamed when doors open.
And the papers found in the crate.
They were not romantic in the manner of stolen jewels, but they were lethal in their own way. They concerned a transaction which, if revealed, would have ruined a man who had built himself upon a public reputation.
So secrecy was his true motive.
secrecy and the belief that he could command the wires as he commanded men.
I asked Holmes then why he had been so sure from the beginning that the cipher in Vernet's desk was planted.
Because it was placed where it would be found. A man who hides his own guilt hides it well, but a man who hides another's guilt hides it clumsily, for he wishes it discovered.
And the strip of paper with the common phrase,
A decree, yet also a hint. It was written in a hand not accustomed to commercial shorthand, and the ink was of a quality which comes from respectable desks. The man who wrote it was plain that the appearance of dockside commerce, but his fingers had never been stained by it.
Holmes smiled faintly, and for a moment the old amusement returned to his face.
You see, Watson, even criminals must act, and acting betrays the actor.
It remains only for me to add that Mr. Vernet, though cleared of suspicion, did indeed lose his post, for in such offices the appearance of trouble is itself a disgrace.
Yet Holmes, who could be generous when his own pride was not engaged, procured for him a quieter situation with a firm of solicitors, where his talent for languages served the law rather than skirted it.
As for the frightened clerk, he gave evidence under protection, and I learned later that he married and left London, which was the best cure for many London maladies.
the Brabant Queen continued to come and go upon the river, bearing honest cargoes, and the wharves returned to their usual secrecy, for the Thames has a way of swallowing scandals as readily as it swallows the refuse of the city.
And now, dear listener, I shall lay down my pen as I have so often done, with gratitude that you have accompanied me through this curious adventure to its close.
If you have found some pleasure in it, I ask you to show it by your approval, by subscribing to the channel, and by leaving a comment, for such small signs help these records reach others who may enjoy them. If you are inclined to support our work further, you may do so by the QR code at the lower right of the screen, or by the link in the description, and your kindness will be received with sincere thanks.
You will find also in the description links to other works of a wholly different series which may suit your taste when you are in the mood for another kind of tale. And so I bid you farewell for the present, with the hope that you will join me again for our next account, and until then, good night.